As pandemic restrictions are loosening up in many places, some of us are extremely excited to not spend so much time on Zoom. The reality is, though, that Zoom isn't going away. Many companies have instituted new policies that allow for some or all of their workforce to be remote, and globally dispersed teams were on the rise even before the pandemic, and so that's only going to continue. So how can we use Zoom in a way that genuinely helps people enjoy themselves, that really builds relationship, that is really compelling and accomplishes the same number of things that we can accomplish in person without burning everybody out and subjecting people to unnecessary Zoom fatigue? Is this even possible? So I created a course recently called Using Zoom Effectively, and it's a comprehensive resource for anybody that has to use Zoom for their work, any kind of work. And it covers all the technical details, all the different tools that are there in Zoom you may have missed, as well as some bigger picture principles like how to prepare, organize, and run more effective meetings on Zoom, a lot of tips and tricks for specific outcomes in Zoom meetings, how to get people talking in ways that are most helpful. And if you want to learn more about this course, you can go to usingzoomeffectively.com. However, what I want to do today is just share with you a few key principles that I have learned in my time as a coach and as a facilitator who has used Zoom with many people, as well, obviously, in my efforts creating this course. So here are 5 principles to use Zoom more effectively. Number 1, have a plan. This seems basic, but a lot of people step into Zoom with the assumption that they can just start talking and the meeting will run itself. And this is not true. You need to have a plan, beginning with what's the point of this meeting? In other words, does this really need to be a Zoom meeting or should it have been an email? Zoom is great for helping people collaborate and talk, and there's a lot of meetings that don't require that kind of collaboration, so consider whether you actually need to be on Zoom. Other ways to plan include having a clear agenda, knowing what interaction tools you're going to use and when you're going to use them, being able to track your time so that you don't waste other people's time, and knowing ahead of time what kind of input you want from people so that you can communicate exactly how they're expected to participate. Which leads me to principle number 2, which is communicate your expectations clearly and upfront. Will our cameras be on or off? If someone starts talking, you can't hear them very well, go ahead and call a timeout and ask them to adjust their volume. Take the couple of minutes to walk them through how to do that if they don't know, because the rest of the meeting will go so much more smoothly. Tell people what the agenda is. Explain to people what your intended outcome is. Prepare people up front, and the rest of the meeting will probably run a lot more smoothly. Principle number 3, Zoom has a bunch of interaction tools. Use them. So as an example, there's a bunch of reactions you can do in the comment section. Spend some time having an interactive activity where people throw up different reactions in response to different questions. Use the chat. Create a poll beforehand and deploy it in your meeting. Use breakout rooms to help make the meeting feel more intimate if you've got a bunch of people and have dialogue. A lot of times we just don't take the time to look at what Zoom offers, and I encourage you to catalog their interaction tools, figure out which ones will serve you best, and then really use them so that people have a more interesting experience. Principle number 4 is build relationship. When we step into a Zoom meeting, a lot of people make the mistake of immediately jumping into whatever the business is that's at hand. The reality is, adult learners need to feel that there's some relationship in the bank. We need to feel a sense of trust. Now, you can cultivate this outside the meeting, like if you're working with a team that you see on a regular basis. But even when you step into a meeting, do a quick check-in up front. Find out how people are doing. You can do this as simply as saying, hey, on a scale from 1 to 10, I want to hear what your general wellness is today. So 1 is very poor, 10 is you're just at the top of your game. Go ahead and type it in, and I'm going to count to 3, and we can all hit enter and send that number in the chat. And then you see the numbers there, 1, 2, 3, enter, numbers there. And then you ask a couple of people, hey, can you just give us some context on your number? And we're starting to build a relationship. We're starting to find it easier to talk because it's easier to talk about ourselves. That will set your meeting up for more progress later on. Always invest in relationship up front. That time will pay dividends later. Finally, principle number 5, use different methods to get people talking. So many people rely overly on the one-to-many method on a Zoom meeting. So I'm the leader, I'm asking questions, and I'm trying to get everybody to respond. Typically, this results in slower answers and in a lower degree of candor. People are not as ready to share in a group setting, especially if you've got 12 to 15 people in the same call. So do something like ask a question, give people some time to write and think, and then use breakout rooms and pair people up randomly or put them in groups of 3 or 4 and have them discuss openly what they're talking about. And if you're the Zoom facilitator, you can pop in and out of these different groups to just sort of overhear people's conversations. Make sure you tell them you're going to do that before you do it. And then you can pull people back together after a few minutes and debrief what they talked about. So now they've been talking, because it's easier to talk one-to-one or one to a few, And then you'll be able to pull highlights from their conversations for the whole group and then move on to what you're doing. Sometimes you can use the chat to get feedback. Sometimes you can intentionally have everyone but 2 people turn their videos off and have a fishbowl where you have like a facilitated conversation between 2 people while everyone else listens and takes notes. Or you can even use tools outside of Zoom like Miro or Trello or Google Drive. Give something that's in the middle so that people can work around and share information in different ways, so that it's not just me sitting there asking the group questions and waiting for responses. If you give people the tools to have better, smarter, and more varied participation, they will use them, and the meeting will be better as a result. Now, if you liked all this stuff, you'll love my course, Using Zoom Effectively. You can check that out at usingzoomeffectively.com. It's a top-to-bottom resource to do everything better on Zoom. But I hope these tips help you. Whatever it is that you do on Zoom, it can be fun. It can be engaging. You can make people feel like they really are present with each other. You don't have to suffer Zoom fatigue. I hope these tips have helped you.